There we go. So, welcome to this first Thinkstitute AI Practice podcast. Uh, this is no promises made. Our first time having a go at this. Let's see what happens. Territory. Uh, I'm Dexter, one half of the AI Practice team here with Tom, uh, and we saw that the Deloitte Tech Trends 2026 has just come out. And we started to make sense of it together and all of its implications. And we thought, well, why don't we capture this and turn it into something we can share with others who might not read all 72 pages, but might be better off knowing some of what's coming out of this.
Well said. It's a big read. 72 pages is a bit insane.
Given we've never done this before,
Hmm.
should we do a who we are
Yeah,
intro?
works for me.
Go on, Tom, I'll hand over to you.
So, my name's Tom Ridley. I am the other half of the Thinkstitute AI practice. I have a background in learning and development, but also within sales and technology. And if you think of Dexter, as I'm sure he'll introduce himself properly in a second, but Dexter is uh, the brains and the psychological side. I would be the tech and the application side of how we leverage AI every day, from an individual to organizational level use, agentic AI, workspace or workplace automation, stuff like that.
Awesome. And so, yeah, I am Dexter. Um, I think brains is generous, but I'm at least trained on the psychology side of it. So try to bring some of that into this. And uh, I mean, the fact that I'm talking about a tech trends report is not something that I saw in my career pathway even 3 years ago. Um, but I've spent the last 2, 3 years mildly obsessing about generative AI, not because of it being a technology, but that actually it's so weirdly human, and its implications and its route to impact is very, very human. And it raises questions about humanity, and it's a people, leadership, culture piece. And so I've really enjoyed reading this tech trends, where I don't think I've read one where, well, not that I've read many, but I'm
Hmm.
surprised how often leadership and culture and job design and all things that, I think traditionally it would be your chief people officer, your HRDs side of things that they'd be writing about, is weaved throughout this document.
Perhaps a blending of the roles of the CTO and the chief people officer.
Yeah, well, that's
Not to be the
the
future.
not that I've looked in great detail at this, but that was the Moderna made the news that they've fused their HR and IT functions. So
Yeah,
maybe this is another nod to those two worlds colliding.
we'll see on that one. Should we pull up the report though? Because at the moment it'd be helpful for everyone to see what we are talking about. And by the way,
Yep.
access to this is free and available on Deloitte's site. You can see the URL at the top of the screen there. If you search for Tech Trends 2026 Deloitte as well, you'll find it in any search engine. So Dex, why don't you take us through? Why don't you kick this off? Because you've looked at this at much more in depth than I have. I've done a whistle stop tour. So where
Yep.
would you like to begin?
Um, well, so there's I think 6 chapters to this and an exec summary. So I think let's spend some time on the exec summary. There's some kind of big picture outcomes we can look at. Um,
Is
and then
this
the
it here?
six
This
chapters. I mean, yeah, the 6 chapters, there was about four I disregarded off the bat as going, well, that's really techy. I'm here for the people stuff. And then when I've read each of them, I've gone, oh, actually, that is a big people issue. So I think we could probably lightly touch on each of the six. But yeah, inevitably, any kind of state of the nation AI report demands that you've gone out and surveyed an anonymous amount of business leaders and people and created some statistics off the back of that. So here's the statistics for this one. Uh, and what have we got? We've got the cliche speed of adoption. So we've got the 10% of the globe are using AI. We spoke about this the other day. The classic leading to AI of going, well, it's been adopted so quickly compared to every other technology. And this one goes, well, it took the phone 50 years, and then it took the internet 7 years, and AI doubled the internet in 2 months, which has the big fallacy of going, well, to access AI, you had to visit a web page. All the infrastructure was already there. So I don't quite buy the speed of adoption piece being purely about this technology. Like there's a utility in that idea, but it gets overstated.
It's difficult as well to really be objective about the amount of usage as well when we consider that it's woven into so many of the tech products that we have nowadays, right? You know, there's obviously individual use of things like OpenAI, Gemini, Claude directly via their own chat interfaces. But what about the times where it's shoehorned into existing tech products, as we see increasingly? Um,
Yeah.
it's the reality is we all touch AI every day, even those of us that have never picked up ChatGPT or have never used a product that has it embedded in it. If we use Google Maps or we use, or if anyone's got their Spotify, what is it, recap of the year,
Mm.
guess what? AI was involved in the creation of that. So it always feels like a bit of a vanity metric when it comes to number of active
Yeah,
users
yeah.
for me.
And let's be business focused for a second. That's the same vanity metric that currently is kind of the yardstick used for AI adoption by businesses. We've got our 3,000 Copilot licenses. How many people have logged in, and are they logging in weekly? And that's the best proxy we've got to adoption is have they summarized an email with it, which is a bit meaningless. Um, uh, so we've got the volume of usage, and then a few things stood out to me on this. Only 1% of organisations saying that they've had no operational model changes. I don't really know what that means.
Yeah. It's an odd one,
Uh,
right? Like, are we saying that 99% of businesses have found a way to leverage operational change? Like, operational change seems such a vague term in this instance.
yeah, yeah.
I question that statistic. Well, particularly I question it
I
in
feel
conjunction with the others, right? Some of the other statistics that we've got highlighted here paint a different picture. So it's almost like I feel like both can't be true. Is that fair?
agreed. Yeah, agreed. So I'm gonna put a threshold to this. I feel like if you're gonna say we've had an operational change around AI, and then I turned AI off the next day, your operating model should no longer work. Like it should now have the AI is, and I don't believe 99% of organizations would stop working if ChatGPT went down or if a collective output happened. Um, so I don't quite buy that statistic. And then I would agree, like, how could it be that 99% have got operating model changes, but 35% have no agentic strategy? And
Or 11% have agents in production. Only 11% have agents in production. That's before we define what an
yeah,
agent exactly is. But yes,
um, so uh, yeah, you get always get this confusing picture of number of users through the roof, um, ROI is lagging. The more advanced kind of infrastructure AI, where it's agentic and it's now in how your systems work, it's a really muddled picture. Um, uh, the last one I will pull out, this is the most true thing here for me. 93% of investment is on the tech, 7% of people. Uh, the most archetype story I hear from organizations is that their expenditure either on licenses or trying to build kind of AI bots, whatever it may be, is into the millions. And then if you go, okay, well, what upskilling have leaders had? What training is there for people to be able to move to this more AI driven world? We've got one or two 2-hour webinars that comes with the license. Um,
Yeah.
we've got a Coursera that we already had access to Coursera. We direct them to that, and hope for the best. Um, and I think that's arguably the biggest issue right now, is that we are so far down one end of investment and massively underestimating what it takes to get the people using this.
And I mean, you said it. I mean, that this is something that that resonates with all of our work that we do around helping organizations to understand where they are on that journey of leveraging AI more effectively, right? So it will be a bit of a shameless plug, but if I pull up just for a moment our maturity model,
Mm,
this statistic bears out exactly what we see, that um, what we find typically, if we focus just on the wedges that sit between Dexter and myself right now, is that people are spending so much money on that right hand turquoise or aqua red wedge around innovation technology, when actually they should be spending more time on training of literacy and helping people lead better with AI. Um,
mm.
so we get to organizations chucking money into the tech, trying to act like they're at that fluent stage of maturity, when in reality they're probably further to the left in red or maybe the blue areas of our maturity model. So it's
I'm
good to feel vindicated in our approach. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I'm biased, but I feel like this entire paper is like a homage to this maturity stages. Um, the most recurring message seems to be, um, the tech absolutely has the potential to be transformational, and just pairing tech and data and throwing it at a very complex organizational system staffed by humans does not work.
Yeah,
And the growing recognition that this is a behavioral science, it's a people issue, um, and the growing need to go, well, we need to come right down to the left hand side here. Like, those statistics explain why it's so fragmented: the rapid access, the
yeah,
discoordinated activity. Um, and most organizations, I would go, their priority for 2026 is just get to foundational, just have that everyone understands what the technology is. How do they use it? What's a vision for our business where AI creates value?
yeah,
What is it about our strategy that AI actually even helps with? So it's not AI for AI's sake. What is it about we do that AI can help us with?
yeah.
And that's largely missing.
And I think if organizations did that, they would see that the vanity metrics, as we've been calling them, would disappear from their internal units of measurement of success, and they'd be going, no,
Mm,
there's some tangible results here. Like that shift
mm.
to foundational brings the individual productivity gains that you can measure. They're not going to be as great as the organizational or the industry wide ones that you might see or influence, but you will start to see them and there'll be tangible things if done at scale throughout the organization, rather than, as we said, we've had this many people turn on a license for Copilot this year. Sort your hair out.
Got a big cow's lick.
So Dex, where do you think we should go first in terms of dissecting a little bit more of a detail of this report?
Okay, so I'm going to go. Let's go to chapter 2, which is about the agentic piece. For our listeners, chapter 1 is all about physical AI and is super interesting, um, uh, but into that kind of prophesizing space. It's coming, it's not here yet. Um, let's focus on what is here. And I guess, like, agentic AI was holding that space probably this time a year, 2 years ago, 18 months ago,
Yeah, a year
of
ago, I'd
going,
say.
well, the next big thing is agentic AI. Um,
Hmm.
And this chapter kind of dissects, well, it's not certainly not lived up to the hype around it. And it's interesting because I think there's parts of your world here, Tom, that really come through as to why agentic AI hasn't lived up to the hype, and there's bits of, let's call it, my world. And this starts
Yeah.
really with the tech side, where it's going. I like the Promethean metaphor around AI. It's like the ability to breathe life into something. And so large language models breathe language into things. Agentic AI was meant to breathe both language and agency into stuff. It could do things by itself.
Yeah.
And then we found out, well, if you breathe agentic life into it, actually there's some big constraining factors depending on what your starting tech stack is. And you must run into
Yeah.
this all the time, right?
Yeah, and there's so many things that run into this. There's let's talk about the slowness, because I think arguably we saw a chart. It's about a year ago, like you said, but instead of it being 2024 to 2028, to your point, it would have said 2025 2026 type timeframes. So
Mm,
I feel like this is the same thing we saw last year, not necessarily from Deloitte, but from various walks, just stretched a little bit further, right? So in my time, there's a few limiters. Sorry, in my space that I work in, there's a few limiters. Data quality has got to be a big one. Um, Not just quality, but the trust in that data. So where does it come from? How is it compiled? Has it already been filtered or processed with AI or without? But just, all those questions really around, do we trust the information that we have? And
mm,
invariably, when you start down a route, particularly if we're going on the top tier track here, where we're trying to get to 33% of enterprise software applications with agentic AI, they rely so heavily on data being passed from one team to another, one part of an organization to another, and obviously between organizations if we're leveraging third-party data. And invariably, it's a blocker.
mhm,
I think so. So there's a real technical issue there. In terms of something related to that is, I would argue, the is about who owns that data and what can we do with it. And then we're running into all sorts of things around governance, security, um, in general ownership. Whose responsibility is it? Let's assume our data is good, for one moment, but then whose responsibility is it to ensure that it consistently stays good or great? Um, and it raises all kind of things or questions around ownership and security and responsibility. So now it's no longer about the content of the data, but how it gets there and who owns that process, which is interesting. So we're already again back to a human-based issue here, where humans have to work out who owns that and who's responsible for signing it off and doing the work, even if it's in conjunction with AI. Who does the work to create it and curate it?
mm.
And then the final one where I see probably a blocker with this is the thinking. The people do not have a way of thinking that works this data effectively into their processes. Or should I really state, reworks their processes to work more effectively with this new way of working. Most organizations, and it is not all, but most are content to iterate on what they do currently, where we're actually, what we're trying to do is fit, in many cases, a square peg into a round hole. And that needs to happen because we need to move forward incrementally. But at the same time that's happening, I'm kind of dying for organizations or more organizations to go, great, that's happening. But we've got an innovation team who are looking at this from like the kind of blue sky perspective. How do we now change what we do unrestricted by history and modus operandi and move into a new way of working, which is much more flexible and doesn't come with all the baggage of what we've been doing historically. And that's a
Yeah.
big leap for a lot of organizations because they don't want to disrupt current process, ways of working, supply chains, channels to market, you name it.
Yep. And I'll keep coming back to our maturity model of going. We present them sequentially,
Yeah.
but you need to pay attention to all of them at once. Um, so absolutely, you should be getting your core business to foundational, and you should have some people who are going, well, but what does transformation mean? Um, because this technology unlocks things that weren't possible before. Um, we don't want to be the blockbuster Netflix of our industry, that we just don't see what's around the corner. And to add in the kind of classic business metaphors, there's always the one about Kodak. Kodak invented the digital camera before everyone else, but it was a leadership issue that Kodak saw itself in the print and ink industry. That was it. That was their value, and for a lot of businesses, they might have to ask, actually, well, what is our value in the generative AI era?
Hmm.
Um, what are we holding on to because it's been true to date that we might have to evolve for? Um, so again, big leadership questions get raised through this.
100%. And actually, to add another, it's not a metaphor, it's a real story, but from the AI space specifically, same thing for Google, right? They've been a champion of search for God knows how many years. They have the two biggest search engines in the world in YouTube and Google. And yet they had models. Well, the rumors are that they had models that were good enough to go to market with when ChatGPT launched. They just hadn't figured out a way to package that and didn't see themselves as that business. A
Mm,
disruptor comes along, entirely new industry springs up, and really for the last 3 years, Google's been playing catch up. Only in the last month have we, with the new Gemini 3, have we seen them really make inroads into ChatGPT and potentially Microsoft's um, foothold within various different, micro industries within the AI space. But
yeah,
all companies, no matter how big, are susceptible to this. Let's not kid ourselves that our own companies are not also at risk from disruption.
yeah. And so if I was being really business focused on this chapter, so I think if you go down on the article, it explains kind of uh, the gap from a technical perspective, technology perspective, data perspective. Then there is, as we've been discussing, this kind of, do you try and build agentic AI to replicate your current process,
Yeah,
or do you go blue sky thinking? What's the best version of this? Um, I personally think it's both,
yeah, I
because
think it has to be both.
it has to be both. Like, there is productivity latent available to you now that you should tap into, and the jump from A to B is probably massive. And so you probably have existing customer services products that you can't just overnight go from A to B. It's going to
Hmm.
have to be a transition across um, with it.
And where we are today as
And
well brings with it like the conversations you have, the frustrations you find in trying to map AI actually highlights the things in the new process, the big blue sky view that you'd want to eliminate moving forwards. So
mm,
the actual the exercise of going through that adaptation of your current process brings with it results that sit outside of that process specifically, but inform
yeah,
your overall strategic direction.
yeah, yeah. Um, and I always would advise that the best place to be designing for that more transformational future is when you've got an AI literate workforce who understand um, how value is created in their area, in their domain, and they understand the tech enough that they can be a valid part of that conversation.
Yes.
One of my general hypotheses whenever I see kind of a Silicon Valley prediction about AI is they fall susceptible to it's called the face validity trap, where you go, it looks like it's doing what it should says it should do. It's concept in psychometrics. You're like, does this questionnaire look like it's measuring what it should measure? And so one of the challenges I find with generative AI is that you go, um, uh, if you don't have the requisite expertise, it looks like it's done a good job. And so it's really
Mm.
easy to go, oh, this technology can do this. And it's not until you get a real expert to look at it and go like, it's not quite doing it, and it's doing it in a very context ambivalent way. Um, and actually, there's a big gap still between the two. Um, um, sorry, just getting somebody coming in the room. Um, uh, so that's why I find that predictions are normally directionally correct, but their timelines are vastly overstated. So they
Yeah, yeah.
underappreciate that piece to it.
No, I completely agree. Where
Um,
else would you go then in this report?
uh, I'm going to pay homage to Ethan Mollick. Is the concluding part of uh, this chapter on agentic AI, and I think it's a great point around this idea of a jagged frontier. It's a general purpose technology. It's already slightly ambiguous what it's good at and what it's not good at, and that ambiguity gets amplified by agentic aspects to it.
Yep.
Um, as my whole concluding part to that chapter is like, I would bet big on agents in the future, and if I wanted to get an ROI out of my AI agenda tomorrow, I would go the most reliable, quickest, easiest route is to get general a frontier level model with licenses for job roles that benefit from it, which is most, have a vision, have leadership, creating the right vision, giving the right guardrails, give people with the right training, um, and keep it as complicated as that. As my that's how I'm going to drive ROI for now. And I'm going to have specialist teams worrying about the transformation and reporting on that from a place of education. But I think most are indexing more on this kind of data and specialists and technology, and under indexing on where is actually the easier, quicker route to ROI.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that, and I think you're right. Like, if we raise the individual bar organization wide, we would see those conversations that we know need to happen, particularly where you're talking about linking the SME knowledge into the technicals of how do we do this, how does this work strategically and operationally and technically, arguably. Um, I think if we had better equipped people to transfer that subject matter expertise into those conversations, they would happen sooner, and they would be more efficient when they do happen. And
Mm.
it's like we run the risk of trying to drag people into conversations. We're all speaking English, but those who are the subject matter experts that do the stuff or work in the space day after day are speaking Japanese.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a, it's
Um,
it's hard to translate that one.
yes, yeah, yeah. And then where would I go next? I think the great rebuild, architecting an AI native tech organization, is interesting. Um, and again, I think this is one where I first opened it and was like, architecting an AI native tech org. That's nearly every word in that makes me think it's I'm not the target audience. And then
Mm-hmm.
I read it and I go, every chief people officer, HRD, people function leader needs to read this, because you go, it starts off by focusing on what tech is being introduced, what forms of AI tech is being introduced, um, which is interesting, very good.
Mm,
And then so much it goes into, what does that mean for job roles? How do you get the workforce ready for this? How are you going to lead people through that? And so um, talks about human machine collaboration at the heart of tech talent strategy. And we I mean, we joked earlier about the kind of the AI HR or IT, HR merging, but you're going, um, how much that is kind of the melting pot of this.
Mm.
Um,
Here's an interesting stat though. Just whilst I've been listening to you there, that comes out like talking about like that human centered approach to the way that organizations are changing AI. But like, here's something
mm,
that flies directly in the face of all that stuff, which is about AI's coming for your job, which you've mentioned before.
hang on, it's
So I've
smaller on my
highlighted it on the
screen.
screen. Sorry, I've highlighted it on my screen. So nearly 70% of tech leaders from the same survey plan to grow their teams in direct response to generative AI. A clear shift from fears of job loss to a strategy of augmentation and specialization. Comes back to that SME point we were saying, but those people need to have AI understanding, at least in terms of its capability. Not They don't need to understand everything. They need to understand what it can do, not necessarily how to implement it. There are other people in the business that can help with that.
Yeah, yeah. I, um, it's I could be going to a rabbit hole with it. I think the one thing we do know is that AI is best viewed on a task-based level. Um, and so you should look at your job as being a collection of tasks, and then you can overlay what's AI good at versus the roles, the responsibilities in my role, and that gives you like a sense of like, you could call it opportunity and threat. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that um, and how's that going to wash through? I mean, I still like the metaphor of what did Excel do for the finance industry? Like there were fears of it reduces the need for people in finance. Like it's done the exact opposite. Um,
Mm-hmm.
what does AI do for the need for knowledge professionals? Well, maybe it radically increases it. Um, I can see good arguments for that. Um, uh, I mean, the thing that always jars with me around the AI job displacement is it works best for roles where your role is really automatable, and this
Mm-hmm.
isn't a great tech for automation. Like it's generative by nature. So there is a level of uh
Randomness.
randomness built into it. So again, could go a rabbit hole with this, but then I mean, in this it starts to talk about uh to make AI work in practice, consider how it can be both an upskilling engine and a tool to bridge knowledge gaps. Um, so it talks about how AI can help you learn about AI. Can help you learn about um, uh, can be part of reskilling.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and even that raises loads of questions. Are we moving into the era of the generalist? And actually, what we've prized to date has been expertise and particular subject matter domains, and now we're going to move more to generalists are the most, it's the higher utility. Or I was speaking with a HR leader um, uh, in kind of commercial property world, and they're going, we are specifically directing people not to start doing um, this idea of kind of overly job crafting your role.
Mm-hmm.
So we've spoken about this before about generative AI means that you can now be a bit of a coder and a bit of a marketeer and a bit of a graphic designer, and suddenly all
Yep.
these things are available to you. And they're going, yeah, but we don't want them doing that. Like we want our commercial function to be selling. Um, so we're trying to be really like targeted in how they use AI to do the thing that they're paid for better, rather than now having that their job descriptions are miles away from what they're doing day to day. And so again, even
Yeah.
that I find interesting because you can make
So
cases for and
interesting.
against.
Yeah, I mean that is so interesting, right? Like, for those of you who are connected to me on LinkedIn, you'll know that I spent a lot of my time working with commercial teams, and never before has that space been more open to like the idea of creating imagery and video to sell, like would have been something completely foreign to salespeople, let's say 10 years ago. Not like like at your fingertips, a salesperson can do that. Now these tools exist to make highly engaging content in a world where standing out is harder and harder. So if I'd said to someone 10 years ago in sales, oh, you know, let's do some prospecting with video. Let's get you recorded, personalized message. They'd have said, no chance. I'm not doing that. Why would I do that? It's a waste of time for the amount of effort, like the effort to reward ratio is wrong. Now
Mm.
it's like most sales teams I'm talking to are going, yeah, I know I should be doing video and I'm not, or video prospecting, or they're doing it. And so it's like, I think I understand that point of view. And I say, I don't want to take us down a rabbit hole, but the world is not, and the way we work is not set in stone. It is, there's things happen, trends change, opinions shift. And I think to have I think we need to be a little bit careful about being too inflexible to retain what we've done previously and avoid what's coming, because that's when we do get a Netflix blockbuster moment. Because someone said, well, we're not going to shift and we're going to double down on what we know, and that might prove to be a
Yeah,
wrong thing.
yeah,
I'm purely going to say, like, to close it out, really is: do you want to put all your eggs in one basket, or do you want to speculate across and
yeah,
spread
yeah.
those bets across a number of different camps? And for longevity of an organization and potentially even your own career, I think I'd probably rather spread it than bet the house on one.
Yeah, yeah. And so, really interesting on this chapter. So it's moving to an AI native tech first organization. What do we run into? I think if you scroll down a bit, um, it's an interview with Gene Kim.
Have a look at it.
Uh, oh no, it's a bit up from where you're at. Sorry, it's different on the PDF to in the. Oh, there we go. Yeah, Gene Kim on the powered. Uh,
Which one?
what? Yeah, what do you what advice do you have for CIOs and IT leaders facing this transition? And what we go into is leadership skills. We go into you're going to be coming up against resistance. So actually, how are you going to create um, uh, engagement with people who are scared of being left behind? And one of the things that we always talk about with our maturity stages, okay, you get that 20% of productivity. Where does it go? And
Mm-hmm.
if AI adoption is not having a top down collective aspect to it, it's just me independently off learning how to do my job better. I work out how to work faster. Maybe I don't work Friday afternoons.
Yeah.
Why would I come back and be like, by the way, guys, I could do that in a fraction of the time that I could before. Um, and so we see lots of organizations, or I see enough organizations where they go, we've piloted it, people have said that they're 20% faster. And I go, great. Um, there's something called the ecological fallacy. Um, great term, sounds fancy. And all it basically means is just because something's true at the individual level doesn't mean it's true at the group level.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go like Real Madrid buy all the best players, doesn't mean it makes them the best team. It's how those players play together that matters.
Yeah.
Everyone's a bit faster, great. Doesn't mean that the team's more productive as a unit. And so
Mm-hmm.
this then goes into leaders play a crucial role in determining where the productivity surplus goes, what happens with it. So
Yeah.
a really kind of tech focused chapter. And the conclusion is, well, it's a people thing that actually you need to solve for afterwards. Even if the tech does make you faster, you then have a big old people issue to get through.
And that people issue can be it can be vast, right? Because it's not just about what do you do, it's how do you communicate that. I mean, we see a lot of stuff in the news now, like, and I know it gets peddled every few years about differences between the generations, right? But we see, there's a narrative at the moment about the younger, newer generations in the workforce are um, looking for more of like a work-life balance. Let's just summarize it like that. They might go, I would
Mhm.
like the 4-day work week, sounds great. And that might be completely juxtaposed to the older generations, potentially leaving the workforce in the next few years. But say who have just been about graft, and if I've got a spare day, think of what I could fill that day with work-wise and what I could achieve.
Mm.
And they're completely juxtaposed positions and are now made possible by this new technology. So I love the fact that it's still a human debate. That's what I love about it.
Yeah, yeah. Um, uh, and that really draws into question like such a core assumption of this could definitely go down a rabbit hole, but like
Let's avoid it.
our our fundamental assumption of like work being time based. And
Hmm.
I know you can't move away from time entirely, but this kind of like how much the 9 to 5 is ingrained to us versus production of economic value.
Hmm.
Um, and so I've grown up in consultancy, so it's the billable hour is the business model, and along comes a technology that fundamentally could not be more disruptive to that.
Hmm.
Um, and so there's a big old question now on what does it do to the economic models of um, time, and does it become a race to the bottom? Do we try and reevaluate what it means in terms of value? How does that play out on a macro level? But right to your point of generational differences, but you could go, well, um, can we produce enough value in 4 day week for a 4 day week for society to function? Do we? It's not. It's arguably arbitrary that we do 5 days. Could this technology get us to 4 days? And you'd always go, well, somebody could work a fifth and
Make
produce
more.
more economic value. Somebody could work 7 right now, but most people choose not to.
Yeah.
Um, uh, it's just a society norm.
It's an interesting debate, and it goes far beyond AI into like social norms and kind of like the I suppose the expectations of the business versus the individual. So yeah, it's super interesting. I just like the fact that like you said throughout this actually that it's a tech topic that actually is underpinned by human nature and behavior at all times. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, 100%. As my last thing would be, that's why this technology, you can go down rabbit holes of like the basis of our society from a humanistic perspective, um, and why a 1 hour rollout of training on Copilot therefore does not meet the brief,
yes,
is what's happening.
yeah, quite well put. So then, is there anything else that you take away from this, or any final thoughts? If not,
Do you know what? There is more in there, but uh, maybe we call it quits there. You pointed it out, and it stuck with me. The cybersecurity piece. It's worth reading, but it frames it as the enemy within,
oh yeah,
and
I think that is worth. Let's give that 2 minutes because I think that's a good way to close out in terms of um, perception or how are we framing the conversation. I think is an important thing here. Where's my
yeah.
just pull it up for everybody.
And
So
so whilst you're getting it up,
well,
oh,
so
sorry, go on.
you put it on. It's up on screen now. You put it to me and said, "Oh, this is a really interesting topic because this is." Again, you said you went into this thinking it was going to be tech heavy, and actually straight out
Mm,
of the gate, it's really not. It's like there's a lot of like human, at least human touch points to this. And
yeah,
before I'd even read into the content, I saw this title, and it distracted me. If I'm being brutally honest, and I fundamentally I take issue with it. And I take issue with it if it's AI. I take issue with it if it's something else. It's another good example of how hyperbole creeps in to these kind of things. And I don't necessarily think it's entirely objective when it's done. And it's positioning this thing, AI, let's call it generative AI to be specific, but generative AI as the enemy. And yet, throughout this report, and what section are we in? 5 or 6 so far. We've seen loads of examples of where the report has said about how working with agentic AI or automation or using it at an individual level can benefit people and organizations over and over again. And the gains can be quite profound. And yet we get to this stage and we call it the enemy. And I know it's talking about bad use of data. That's got stuff here on shadow AI, deep fakes.
Mm.
So the idea of like privacy and protection, I get it. I 100% get it. But I just wish we didn't frame the conversation as the enemy rather than just be responsible use of AI or understanding limitations or the dangers. Like there is with everything, but it's not the enemy. And that frustrates.
Yeah, and I'll come back to um, the um, the enemy here is employees doing things that they shouldn't with the technology to some extent.
Yeah.
And is there enough here on um, actually it's employees that are operating in an environment where they've not been given enough guidance, support, um, training, education. Um, there are. It's not quite a perfect metaphor, but it's a bit like going. Um, Normally, the threats are from outside of your house, but now you've got kitchen knives. There's danger within your house, and it's like,
Yeah.
no, people just need to know how to use tools responsibly, even if they have um, um, sharp edges to them.
Yes. Well
Uh,
said.
uh, and so, yeah, this for me, it misses the point of just how much actually AI came out, and the main message everyone got was, "For the love of God, don't use it. Don't put our company data into it," which was kind of appropriate at the time. Have organizations done enough since then to put out as strong a messaging with as clear a message around what safe, responsible AI use looks like, what endorsement there is for AI, what safe parameters there are? And I mean, if your organization strategy is still, we've got a pilot group, but for everyone else, stay away,
Mm-hmm.
you're moving so slowly. Of course, there's shadow AI going on because you're just so far behind what is a really useful tool on the individual level that it's going to happen.
Yes.
That's a leadership issue, not your people being naughty issue.
And I think for the first time that I can think of, um, at least at a scale like this, regardless of industry or geography, arguably, it's time where a technology in business or a technology you can get in your private life is directly applicable to business. And therefore, like the barrier
Yes.
between why you should use it in which of those two spaces, personal and business life, is completely eroded. It's not like, we have LinkedIn, we have Facebook, two separate technologies that, all right, sometimes people moan about LinkedIn being a bit like Facebook now, but fundamentally there's a divide and you go, I don't put loads of stuff on LinkedIn to be like Facebook and vice versa, right? That's just the way that the way it is. There is no line separating what can and can't go on or should or shouldn't go on to say Chat GPT or Gemini, any of these tools. And if people are using it in their personal lives, which we are seeing the data shows us that they are,
Mm,
it is natural that they then want to go and apply it in their work life. And when they get
yeah, yeah.
access to tools they've been told are AI and going to propel their organization into the future, and then they get them, and it feels like it's like if we gave kids today like they've been used to having computers and the consoles they have now, and then giving them for those that are old enough, a Sega Mega Drive or something equivalent, right, or a Genesis for those in the US. They are like they're like, what are these graphics that we're talking about here? Why can't I save my game? What, you mean I have to plug this
Yeah,
cartridge
yeah.
into my plug it in? It's like they wouldn't stay. They wouldn't want to spend all day playing that. Because they're used to Minecraft and Roblox and everything else that comes in between. Fortnite. So, and I just feel
I
like
think
that's
we
what's happening in real time.
Yeah, yeah. I think we're starting to move past it to some extent, but definitely had a good 18 months of talking to HR teams. And then I go, so what are you allowed to use Chat GPT or Gemini? And they go, no, 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 we've got the free version of Microsoft Copilot.
Yeah.
Okay. And are you using Chat GPT? We're not allowed to, but are you using it? Yeah, we're using it. And it's like, well, yeah, it's too useful. It's like
Yeah,
it's
it's inevitable.
happening. It's a leadership challenge to get around that.
Yeah,
Anyway, we should wrap it up there.
perfect. So thank you for joining me. I think it was a good idea for us to do this for a first podcast ever. Um, Anybody who's made it to the end, thank you very much for listening. These obviously will get better over time, but um, straight out the gate, not bad.
Yeah. Any feedback on what would make it better or what was useful, let us know.
Good. Well, until next time, have a good week.
Nice one.